From the home offices of Ash and Flo, this is Unbillable Hours, a podcast about professional services marketing. Stick around and listen to our insights, tips, and best practices to improve your firm's marketing and even your career.
I guess we're back, Flo.
We are back after a teeny tiny summer break because we had a couple of hectic days, and we are back, Ash, to discuss. It's not a news topic, right?
It's not a news topic because let's put it this way: the world is in recovery, even though it's not fully over. It's, let's say, if you want to put it in medical terms, it's like convalescing. And guess what? Events are back.
Yeah, events are back.
In consultancies, places I work, places you deal with, they're all doing loads and loads of events again. And then you came across something really interesting. I think the audience would be...
That is the news angle. That's why I mentioned news there at the beginning. Yeah, actually, I read a piece in a German consulting industry trade press title that struck me as interesting because it mentioned the fact how consulting firms are struggling with very rude no-shows for the live events, right? People who say, yes, I'll come, they RSVP, and they don't show up without having canceled, which, according to that article, wasn't that big a problem in the earlier days. So apparently, I think that just here is people have sort of brought some of the bad habits from the COVID virtual meeting season with them into the live events, creating this problem that you thought 20 people were coming, you ordered dinner for 20 and just 5 of them don't show up and haven't canceled. I think that was the idea in the article. I think you already had a discussion with some of the authors of the article, but I also tend to lean on your end because no shows are always a thing and you have to plan for it. There's no contingency against no shows other than thinking about some tactical approaches to deal with that. But just coming up and saying that it's poor behavior, poor ethics, or whatever coming out of virtual meetings and virtual events. That was me saying that. Or I think it's sort of implied in the article, but gist that it stopped me and I read it and I thought it was interesting and I thought I would talk to you about it because what they clearly said is there's an upwards tendency in that stuff happening. To your point that it's always been an issue, probably, but apparently whoever wrote that article registered the fact that it jumped. And whether that's true or not, or it's true everywhere or not, I don't know. But that prompted me or prompted us to say let's use this episode to talk about fixing events, the live version, if you're doing those in your firm. And I don't know. So
I think I want to start on this in terms of if you're just taking first of all, events need to be considered like its own marketing pipeline from acquisition, growth, retention, because that's essentially the whole thing.
So like a product is what you mean, right?
Yeah, like a product and like a product campaign. When you think about it, you're acquiring, you're growing, you're retaining. Retaining means getting the people in. Acquiring means getting the people through the door for the first signups and stuff. Growing means just growing the pipeline. The biggest thing about virtual events is people focus so much on the growth because they knew that it's very easy to get people to sign up to something on email, and then all you need to do is send them a link and they can appear, they can watch it live and stuff. So
and even if they don't, just because that'll be important later, I think. But to your point, yes, people were crazy to drive the signups because even if people don't show up, I have the sign up, right? So I can email them, I don't know, the recording of the session or whatnot.
Yes, exactly.
For the virtual event. Yeah.
No worries. And when we're thinking about tactics, we also have to understand we now have definitely moved into a hybrid model of working, right? So people work virtually and people work in person. It's there are various ways going about it. There's lots of discussion. We don't have time to get into that. You have to think about events in a hybrid model as well. You will have X number of people attending live, watching the event face-to-face, meeting, greeting, drinks, all that stuff. And you'll have a number of people who will pop into the session virtually. And you always have to do this thinking that if your entire entire growth is about audiences say it's 100 people, you'll probably by default anyway have 50, at least around 50% no-shows. That's a normal thing. But rather than treat everything as no-shows and people coming in live, focus the cost to make it into a hybrid event where, first of all, number of people are coming in virtually and engaging with it, and number of people are engaging with it in real time. That way you will have your leads in general. Now comes the issue of qualifying these leads as you build your whole, planning process. And the whole qualification of leads in this particular case is, first you send out your whole thing. Okay, you're doing this event, just give some high level details, see how many people sign up, give a bit more detail, see how many people sign up. Then you need to start qualifying to see how many people can't make it, by saying that if you can't make it, you can attend it virtually, or we have materials post event. And you can give those kinds of options by seeing how they engage with your content. Because if you just think for an event, the whole thing is, hey, I'm just sending an invite and then I'm just sending something else, and then they should show up. Why would you show up? Like,
Yeah.
let's
I mean,
let's put it as a real world example. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, but I just wanted to pause you there because I think what you said is very, very important. So the 50% no shows, I've no clue what the benchmarks are for the live events, but you're right in that there will be benchmarks. Like, you shouldn't expect, if 100 people sign up, you shouldn't expect 100% of them being there.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, to be fair to the publication, that was not the point of the article. They said of those 40, 50%, whatever no shows, like a significantly larger number of those will not cancel in advance. They'll just not show up without telling you anything, and that causes the issue. So what you said there in terms of a tactic of, once you have made the pitch, people have RSVP'd, and I heard you say what you then do is you stay in touch and you explicitly ask them, are you still on for the thing, right? Probably a day or 2 or 3 or whatever the cutoff date for catering and whatnot is in advance. Yes, fully agree with that. And I think people should take note. That is a must do, because that already gives you insight into, like, that already sort of helps you uncover some of those not self-declared no-shows or whatever the phrase is, right? So that reduces the number of meals you order that don't get eaten, I think. And do I understand correctly, what else you're saying is also through this pre-show outreach and engagement, you get a handle on people who don't even open the emails anymore or don't respond. So you can maybe, even though that's not a hard no of them, I'm not going to come, you get a feeling for, will this be 50% no-show versus 10%? Is that, did I hear that correctly?
Yes, you can gauge engagement from that. And there's another element where basically you gauge interest by asking them, are they interested in the live or are they interested in the virtual thing? And based upon that, you can set your planning thing. Because the thing is, when you see some people might be interested in your content, people might be interested in the discussion, they may have other commitments or they may be uncertain.
Yeah.
Like when you think about elections, the largest chunk is always this undecided group who are easy to sway one way or the other. The key thing here is we just need to focus how many people have also put in the option for virtual. There may be, and these are the people that you shouldn't put your time and energy and money into everything, because these are the people who would clearly be like, yeah, they're not really they're interested in your content, but they're not really interested in being there. So make sure that they are in your pipeline in a separate segment, rather than putting them into the cost area of like, I need to like take care of catering and all that kind of stuff for them. No, focus on the catering of the people who purely said they will be there live, and amongst that,
and then confirm that when you explicitly ask them, are you still on? We gotta submit to catering, blah blah, and then they respond. I like that a lot, and I think also what I hear from you is, to put that in tech speak terms, what you seem to be doing is just increase the number of signals for your algorithm, right? Not just one RSVP and then we think that's gospel, but ongoing pre-event communications, and depending on the engagement level I see, we'll put them in a likely to show up versus we're probably not going to see that person ever bucket, and maybe some in between, right? Did I catch that correctly? Because I think these are good fixes already. Yeah.
And amongst the group that are both virtual and in person, there are people who click both options. If you really want them there, do personal outreach, not this mass email stuff. Because if you want someone to be there to talk to you, you need to give them a reason. It's just like how you do content. If I just say, here's general content, and then here is what I want to do in the supply chain space, And then I'm basically trying to sell this to, your favorite industry, Flo, automotive. They'll be like, well, this doesn't really make sense for me unless there is something specific on it about the automotive industry. So the same way, like, reach out, make it customized, talk to them. There will be some cost of effort rather than cost of play. I would say that's how it works.
And then and just to insert one more tactic here, so much better engagement pre-event, much more communications, and a bit more sophisticated approach to tiering guests, right, by their probability of showing up. I think that's a very good one. The other one I had here as a tactical fix is see if you can increase the commitment of guests up front. Like, this is similar to what you said with the ask them explicitly whether they can come or not. Like, sending a signal that, like, for example, have two options for a meal and ask them which one to choose. That sort of signals, that increases my commitment to your event. Does that make sense? Because I didn't only say I would come, but 2 weeks later I pick a meal. Like, so now I have said twice that I would be there, right? It makes it more difficult. I don't know. And then also, obviously, and I mean, it's probably for our second part where we talk about the strategy a bit more, but if your stuff is good enough, you could also charge a price, right? Doesn't have to be much, but it's a 50 or 70 euro ticket for a content event with some dinner or something, which I really want to have. That, of course, decreases the likelihood of me canceling, like, on the day it's supposed to happen significantly. I mean, I get it. You can't do this if all you're going to do is regurgitate some tech vendor presentation over a glass of wine, right? Or if you bring like a sloppy market overview of information everybody had read in The Economist a week ago, then sorry, that's probably too mean. Our listeners probably set up much better events than those. But we've all been to one of those, right? Where you agree to go and you do go and you listen to presentation and the cheese is not great and the wine is bad, and sort of halfway through you wonder, why am I here? I certainly been on a few of those hosted by consulting firms. Sorry for that.
No, absolutely. And I know the next point that we're talking here is about the strategy, and something that's not there, but I do think is relevant, is this is the point of convergence of marketing and sales, because essentially the marketing part takes care of the event organization, planning, invites, and all of that, but the sales qualified leads need to come into the pipeline at this point. By that I mean salespeople are already having the conversations going on, rather than try to force these people to go into all the offices. If you've got these clients nearby, make sure that the meeting happens on site at the event. You A, drive people to the event, B, get them to see a bigger picture of what your offerings and things are, and C, you have the spaces to facilitate the conversation without having to like incur extra expenses. You need to like strategize with the sales team at that point, and if you don't do that, you're missing a huge opportunity.
And I think it's also an easy, and that's why I think I would agree it's fine to put that in the tactics section. It's also an easy tactical way to actually increase the value of the event. Now, this is me presuming that your business development or salespeople, which in a consulting firm probably are senior consultants, right, or partners or whatever, are good at these types of events. But if I'm the client and I know I'm going there not just for a presentation and some wine, but I'm going to meet Jane or Jeff or whatever, who are very interesting partners for a conversation about my business, like that sort of adds something on top of it. So I fully agree with this sort of, again, to your earlier point, that takes personal effort on the part of the sales, on the people responsible for sales. They need to do personal outreach, do sort of a scheduling of a meeting within the meeting or within the event, right? These types of things. But yeah, I agree that certainly drives it up. But before we move into the strategy or the bigger picture, I consider ourselves still to be in the realm of tactical fixes. I wanted to double click on something you said, because you said, well, just make sure it's hybrid, or there's not just an live in-person component, but also a virtual component. Even if you don't have the budget or the setup to allow people to attend live virtually, right? So still, I think you can do a lot by capturing as much of the content that is presented in the event and sharing that in a follow-up. And that is where I time and again see even the best firms, and some of them do events really well, sort of sell themselves short, because they set up the event, it's great, there's cool presentations, there's interesting discussions, and then the follow-up is, oh, here are the 3 keynote presentations and some email, and that's it, which I think that could be greatly improved upon if you think about it. It could become an email cadence where you also deliver stuff in video or maybe podcast format, not just the presentations, right? Could be follow-up Q&A. So that we could brainstorm a bunch of stuff. But the idea being, if you can turn the content from the event into something, to your earlier point, that follows the actual happening in a campaign, then the damage done by someone not showing up decreases significantly. Yes, you might have ordered a meal for them that didn't eat it, and you'd have to share the leftovers with the team. I'm not advocating throwing the food away, but I mean, so you get my point. Like there's some cost of them not being there, but you diminish that because you sort of feed the actual content and you have the conversation after the fact, and that is something I find is still very difficult. I mean, and I get why, right? Everybody's busy and so forth, but the follow-up to these things, man, that could be improved. And that is, the improvement could be wholly owned by the marketing team. You could really set yourselves apart and do the business a huge favor if you could turn their events into more of a follow-up thing.
Yes, I absolutely agree on that one. That is where a lot of people actually struggle, because they just don't do the follow-up. I know it's a big sigh, but it's the truth.
It's a big sigh, it's the truth. And I mean, it's not even, I mean, don't even talk about like personal follow-up where we learn about somebody's preferences during the event, and then that informs the content we feed them afterwards. I'm not even talking sophisticated stuff like that. Just the general sort of across the board overall outreach falls flat, and that would be the last lever I wanted to touch upon in terms of improving the tactics or fixing the tactics. But talking about that, I think let's move into the strategy and how the consultancies think about events in a bigger picture. I mean, you already talked about the hybridization, right? And the need to think about not just doing it live and in person, but also doing it virtually. I think I would add to that that's correct. And we just have to realize that consumption habits have changed even pre-COVID, but then certainly also during the pandemic. And people just expect stuff to be asynchronous and on demand now. On top, I mean, they still go to the live thing and see it, but I would fully expect to maybe have a video repository for the breakout sessions or the conference tracks I didn't get to see, right? Or I would like to take something home which I can share with my team, all this stuff. So that, I think that has to be built in, and this is where we land at a place in terms of thinking about the actual event, where you just have to realize that the event is just the beginning of something, of a content campaign or journey. It's not the end all be all of it. And I think that's a mindset shift for many people. Yeah, to your earlier point, again, seeing it as a campaign, right? It's the entry
seeing it as a
campaign
with multiple touch points.
Yeah. And I would even argue it's the entry point to your campaign, right?
Yes.
In a way.
I mean, in a way.
It's where the content gets created that then gets reused and repurposed and so forth. Another thing and we had our guest Stephen Pope talk about this. So that's the idea of change your mindset about how events work. And then I think the next step, and you referred to this earlier when you said you have to retain and grow something. The next thing is to just stop thinking about live events, like the actual thing, the actual starting point of something, as a one-off, right? And much more think about it much more as a programmable series, and build not just for the one big splash, we're going to do this year and that's it, right? And then we have a sort of a content campaign. No, do one every year or do one every quarter or something like that. So build a series, because that allows you to your earlier point, to grow the audience over time, right? You go from there's 10 people at my first iteration, there's 50 people to my second iteration, to there's 300 at the fourth, and then it suddenly is 1,000 people after, well, I did this for 4 years or something like that. I don't know if that's the curve, but that's the idea, right? You continue to do the thing and improve upon it so that it gets a given thing on people's calendars.
Yeah, I would actually agree with that. Yeah. So I think we've actually touched on this whole event we've made, and while we're talking about it, thanks to everyone who joined our first live event. This is not it's not the only thing, and it's not a one-time thing. We are going to have another event, hopefully in summer. We are working on it. We're planning it out, and we will let you guys know a little more about it. I think you might, if you're following Flo, you'll definitely hear more about it sooner than if you're following me.
Yes, we're working on that and taking our own advice of planning things as a series and continue to doing it, right? We're trying to find actually a schedule that works where we can just repeat it on same day, I don't know, last Thursday every other month, something like that, so you can find it more easily. That's the idea. And yeah, I mean, right, that's a good announcement at the end there. Just to reiterate, if your firm is doing more live events, I'm doing the recap thingy now at the end, if you don't mind. If you have stuff planned and rolling already, just think about some of the tactical improvements Ash and I mentioned, right? Really work on the pre-event engagement, and maybe, I mean, I know you recommended also having a virtual option. I don't know if everybody gets to fold that into plans if they already exist, but work on the pre-event engagement, ramp that up, right? Try to sort of tier your signups or your RSVPs according to the likelihood in which they show up, right? So you get a better handle on it. And I mean, for a fact, I know that I know lots of firms are doing that already. Others don't do it at all, but I know you and I know firms which have that problem quite under control with the non-excuse no-shows. But that being said, and I think besides the communications, find ways to increase the commitment to improve the likelihood of people actually attending, right? Have to pick a meal, send them options for individual meetings, right, to your point with the salespeople and so forth. Maybe even charge a price if you can. And then last tactical fix was, the second to last was make sure they can have, once they get there, value-adding conversations with the salespeople. And once all of that is done, right, and the thing is about to start, make sure you record the heck out of it and you can build a follow-up content campaign based on the material you created that'll last you for way longer than the typical thanks for attending, here's the PowerPoint one-off follow-up shot, right? That's not what we would like to do. That was tactics. What did we say about strategy? I forgot. Oh, change your mindset, right? Think, respect people's expectations around asynchronous content consumption. Always offer that option, like Ash said. Think about...
go ahead.
No, please.
I was just saying, sure those conversations are happening so that you can actually drive the conversations at the event rather than thinking about, thinking about in other ways. Use your market qualified and sales qualified leads and your marketing and sales teams in a strategic way rather than just, having it either sales driven event or a marketing driven event.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's an entire episode in and by itself.
But it's a strategic point.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah, but I'm taking a note. We should come back to that because I've seen too many events which are completely financed and prepared by marketing, but then they're actually turned into sales shows. Anyways, and I think continuing on your point with the mindset, I think what we said was don't think of the event as the end point of some project journey, but it's the beginning of what should be a longer campaign, right? And then last but not least, if you can do that, the next shift would be to think about doing a series of recurring live events with the content campaigns that follow them, right? To really build momentum and growth on something. I mean, a couple of examples we always, all the big tech companies have those, right? Salesforce has Dreamforce, SAP has Sapphire, I think. Hewlett Packard Enterprise runs Discover. Like all these companies have built major happenings for their audiences over very long time horizons. The first Salesforce Dreamforce event probably was not with thousands of people in attendance, right? You got to build that stuff, and it takes the right mindset, the right strategy, and also the patience to do it. I guess those were our recommendations, right? For
I think events. I absolutely agree, and I think that's a wrap for this episode. So. Cool. Bear in mind, we will have an event soon, and and
that's it. I'll stop the recording, and you and I can have some weekend if you can. All right. Have a great Friday eventually. See ya.
Thanks for listening to Unbillable Hours. If you want more, tune in next week. You know where to find us.